It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye. Hey everyone, it's Aaron from Got a Minute. Here we are looking at another video that is pointing to the potential rapture on June 16th, 2024. I'm only human. I don't know if it's going to be on that date, but wow. This is some extra information that I think is really worth presenting. So I'm going to talk about my new thought here, and then I'm also going to save my review of everything else for the end of the video and tie it all together. So this, what you're looking at is, where to begin? All right, so you've got a lampstand, okay, and in Psalm 67, I'm going to put lots of pictures in this video after I'm talking, so I don't know exactly when I'm going to be putting them in here, but okay, so Psalm 67. If you don't include the heading of the verse, the chapter of Psalm 67, there's lots of pictures that look like a menorah, right? So, and in Psalm 67, there's essentially 7 verses. Okay, so this first branch represents the first verse, second verse, third verse, fourth verse, fifth verse, sixth verse, seventh verse. And the center verse represents Jesus, and it represents Jesus, bringing judgment. So, and then the verses 3 and 5 basically say the same thing, and 2 and 6 have a similar theme pattern. 1 and 7 has a similar theme pattern. And in Psalm 67, if you ignore the title of it, like this is the title of it. Like here, I'll read it. I'll read Psalm 67. With that in mind. Now, they recite Psalm 67 in the Omer counts. Every day leading up to the Feast of Weeks, they recite Psalm 67. So in their minds, they're thinking about the lampstands. Okay. But you and I know that we are the lampstands in the book of Revelation when John is taken up into the throne room. All right? And so what we have here is this. Psalm 67, to the chief musician on stringed instruments, a song. So that little phrase is like the light above the menorah. First verse, God be merciful to us and bless us and cause his face to shine upon us. So that is essentially right here, this first thing in their minds, right? Verse 2, that your way may be known on earth, your salvation among all the nations. Salvation means Yeshua. That should be, let me just double check. I think that's H3444. I'm just going to check on my computer as I'm talking to you. Salvation in the Old Testament, when you ever see salvation, it generally means Yeshua. I'm just double checking it here. 67 verse 2. Yes. Yeah, so that's H3444, and that means Yeshua. Every time you see salvation, it means Yeshua. And then nations means Goy, which is a Gentile nation. So here's Yeshua saving the Gentile nations. So there's your rapture right there. Yeshua saving the nations. Verse 3 and 5 are very similar. 4 being the center of it, of the lampstand. Verse 3, let the people praise you, O God, let all the people praise you. Verse 5, let the people praise you. O God, let all the people praise you. Well, verse 4 is the center of it all. That's pointing to Christ. Oh, let your nations be glad and sing for joy, for you shall judge the people righteously. That's Jesus. But we just talked about Jesus right here. Yeshua is going to do all that. Beautiful. Amazing. And then verse 6 and 7, then the earth shall yield her increase. Well, that sounds like a harvest to me. God, our own God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. So we have this, going back to this picture, we have a picture of a lampstand. In Psalm 67, they recite Psalm 67 during the 49-day count, leading up to Feast of Weeks, which is the 50th day. After the 49 count, it's the 50th day. Well, look at that. The center of the first phrase of Psalm 67 is centered on the one Hebrew letter, which is a noon. It's a noon. So the Lord's Day is now highlighted by the number 50. The Lord's Day, right? 50. Because this is all centered on Christ. And Joshua, son of Nun, son of 50. And we'll save some review for later, but I'll show you just a little snippet of this. You see how that noon right there in the middle of that phrase for Psalm 67 in my Hebrew Bible? Right there, right in the middle there, that's a noon. So there's 9 letters to the left and 9 letters to the right. So what they've done is they put 3 letters, 3 letters, 3 letters, 1, 3, 3, 3. So it's all centered, and it points to Yeshua, son of noon, right? Salvation, Yeshua, son of noon. Perfect. Gentile nations, we are the Gentiles, and we are the first fruits. So I'm going to present something to you. I think that when it says in Revelation 1, verse 10, when it says that Paul was brought up to heaven, I think that he was brought up to heaven on the Feast of Weeks, on the Sunday. Oh boy, that's a big statement. And this is what it says. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet. So it's Lord's Day, and we heard a trumpet. Well, we know in Exodus 19 there was a massive trumpet sound. We know that that's tied to, that was on Mount Sinai, and that was during the Feast of Weeks. But what is the Lord's Day? I present that this actually is the Feast of Weeks. If this is it, if what I'm presenting is true, oh my, big deal. So, is this the Feast of Weeks? Well, the Lord's Day, what does that mean? Well, when you read, like at first, like, is that the Sabbath or what? Is it the Sabbath or not? But the thing is, in the New Testament, we had this Greek word G4521, or did I say it right? 4521, yeah. It means, the Greek word is Sabbaton, and that's another word for Sabbath. Every time you see the word Sabbath, for the most part, when you see the word Sabbath in the New Testament, like over 60 times, maybe close to 70, you see this Greek word G4521, it's Sabbaton. So John knew exactly what a Sabbath was, and everybody knew what a Sabbaton was. It pointed to a Sabbath. But we see this phrase, the Lord's Day. He's there on the Lord's Day. And so I propose that John knew exactly what he was saying by saying Sunday. But if we ramp this up, I talked about this before. We're going to go back to Leviticus 23. When Jesus rose from the grave, he rose on a Sunday. And I'll prove that. And I'll also prove that Feast of Weeks is supposed to be on a Sunday. And I think, therefore, because of this Leviticus stuff, that Revelation 1:10, the Lord's Day is actually a Sunday and not a Sabbath, because if it was a Sabbath, I think he just would have said on a Sabbath. But he didn't say there on a Sabbath. He would have said Sabbaton. He said the Lord's Day. I think this is a big deal. So I think that he was in the throne room on the Feast of Weeks. And look at all this other stuff. What happens in the book of Revelation? Revelation chapter 1, it clarifies for us the lampstands. So we have here verse 20, the mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand and the 7 golden lampstands. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands which you saw are the 7 churches. So, and then chapter 2 and 3 is all about the lampstands, about the churches. But let's go to Leviticus, and I'm going to talk to you about this whole Sunday thing, and we're going to get right to that, and then we'll come back. So basically, Israel is, as they're leading up to the Feast of Weeks, they're thinking about the lampstands, but they're not reading the end story. They're not reading the story with Christ, and they don't see the whole picture. But it's amazing. Okay, so Leviticus 23, we have this. This is when Jesus rose from the grave on the Feast of Rashit, Feast of First Fruits. Rashit, that's different than the word in Feast of Weeks. But it says here, he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted on your behalf on the day after the Sabbath, which in my opinion is the Lord's Day. So the Sabbath is a Saturday, and the Lord's Day would be a Sunday. And so he shall wave the sheep before the Lord to be accepted on your behalf on the day after the Sabbath. The priest shall wave it. So Christ, when he rose on the Feast of Rashit, he rose on the Lord's Day. And in my opinion, actually, he rose precisely at dusk. I'll just show you that right now, right here. I think that he was put in the grave precisely at 6 p.m. on Nisan 14. They're split between 14 and 15 when the day transitions to night. And I believe he rose right at dusk between Saturday day when it transitioned to Saturday night, right at that dusk. And so I think anyway he rose on the Sunday, and so the Lord's Day. Now let's prove this out here too. Why Feast of Weeks will always be a Sunday, and so that's why I'm looking at June 16th and not anything before it. And if anything, I'll lightly look at June 23rd if we're still here because it's a Sunday. But okay, look, pay attention. And you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath. Okay, that's a Saturday. So start the count from a Sunday because it's the day after the Sabbath. From the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be completed. So 7 Saturdays. Count 50 days. We're just going to clarify it for you to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall offer a new grain offering to the Lord. So that's the day after the Saturday. So 15 and 16. Saturday is the Sabbath, and the Sunday is the day after. And I propose that the Lord's Day is actually the Sunday. Let me show you this calendar thing here. I'll zoom out just a bit so you can see that better. And so we have this. This year we're saying that Nissan 14 was right around April 22nd, more or less. And so we start the count from the Sunday, April 21st. So if you count beyond that, you get those, and you do all the counts in May. Those are your 7 Sabbaths. And then day 50, it happens to land on Father's Day, June 16th. And it happens to be 70 days from this eclipse. And it happens to be 9 months from when the child was in Virgo. And now the child is under the wing of the eagle. And the moon is actually in Spica in Venus. Sun, Venus, and Mercury are in the center of that hexagon shape between Aurea and Taurus and Orion and Gemini. But going back to this theme here, we have, so Leviticus 23:11 means that Jesus rose from the grave on a Sunday. Leviticus 25:15 through 16 explains that Feast of Weeks is a Sunday. Now, the other thing about Leviticus 23 is none of these other feasts are actually guaranteed to be on a Sunday. Nissan 14 shifts depending on the calendar year. Unleavened bread shifts depending on the calendar year. Feast of Trumpets shifts depending on the calendar year. Feast Day of Atonement shifts because of the calendar year. Feast of Trumpets shifts because of the calendar year. The only days that are a Sunday is going to be the Feast of First Fruits over here when Jesus rose from the grave, and the Feast of Weeks has always been and always will be on a Sunday. It's the day after the Sabbath. Now, some people say, oh, you got to use the moon cycle. Oh, no. You don't use the moon cycle for the Sabbath. 6 days shall work be done, and the 7th day is a Sabbath day of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is a Sabbath on the Lord's and all the dwellings. And it'll say that in other areas of the Bible. I think it says it in Exodus 13. Let me just see if it says that there too. It says that all over the place. Every 7th day is a Sabbath. I think it was over here. Let's see here. Oh, this is unleavened bread. Let me just find one more witness of this. Here's another witness here. This is Exodus 23, verse 12. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest. Okay, so there's your other witness there. Exodus 23, verse 12. Third witness, Exodus 16. When he's raining bread from heaven, he's telling them that on the 7th day you should rest and not gather, your flour, your manna. And so there's actually, I think, more than this, but that's good enough for now. The point is that the Sabbaths do not have anything to do with the moon cycle, because the moon is not a perfect 28-day cycle. It's like 29 and a half, so it would never work out. So Sunday is always the Lord's day, in my opinion. So I think that John was in the throne room in Revelation chapter 1 on the Feast of Weeks. Now, isn't it amazing that the Jews will pray and say the Psalm 67, which is visually the lampstand, leading up to the time when it looks like John was in the throne room when the lampstands were done. Now, he sees 7 lampstands. So 7 times 7 is 49. So he sees 49 lights, but in the center, in the midst of the lampstands, he sees Yeshua, the son of noon. Come on. He sees like a 50 count in the throne room. Ay, caramba. That's great. So I think he's in the Lord's, I think he's brought up on Feast of Weeks. I think so. And then Revelation 4, verse 3, we got the theme of the color. This is just a bit of a review, but we have after these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which in heaven And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me. That's like Exodus 19, like the Feast of Weeks. Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he who sat on it was like a jasper and a sardis stone in appearance, and there was a rainbow around the throne, in appearance like an emerald. Emerald is green. So there you go. You got Sunday related to this green, I think. I think that's the Feast of Weeks. That's another thing too. If you look at the rainbow and you look at the feast, you got Passover, you got unleavened bread, you got Feast of First Fruits, and then you got your Feast of Weeks, and then you got your trumpets, then you got your atonement, then you got your tabernacles. Is this the Lord's day? In more than one way. Okay, so Revelation 2 and 3, like I said, is all about the lampstands. Psalm 67 is about the lampstands. Psalm 67 verse 4, it's the same kind of thing as for Isaiah chapter 4. So Isaiah 11 chapter 4, I should say, is also talking about the menorah. And I'll try and insert a picture here as I'm talking here. And you can see the visual thing that's derived from Isaiah 11, verse centered around 11 verse 4. So let's here I'll read you Psalm 67 verse 4, going back to the theme of this lampstand. Oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you shall judge the people righteously and govern the nations on earth. What does Isaiah 11 verse 4 speak of? There it is. With that in mind, we just heard about a man, Jesus, bringing judgment. What does it say in Isaiah 11 verse 4? But with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. So all of Isaiah 11, these branches 1 and 7, are, when it says knowledge and fear, they're the outside ones, knowledge and fear. And then it says counsel and might, they're the second and the sixth one. And then when it talks about wisdom and understanding, that's the third and the fifth one on the lampstand. And the center is the branch, and that's Jesus. That's Jesus. There shall come forth a rod from the stem of Jesse, from the line of Jesse. That's Jesus. And a branch shall grow out of his roots. So the center, that's Jesus. There we go. He is the vine, and we are the branches. We are the branches, and he is the vine. We got no oil. We got no life without Christ. And noon means life, means seed. It's like, it's awesome. Okay, so I think what we're seeing in Revelation 1 is John being taken up on Feast of Weeks. That's what I think now. Okay, and then we're brought to the Yeshua, the son of noon, so, symbolically. We talked about that. We also now have Psalm 68. If you just read through it and you see that, like if they read Psalm 67 for 49 days straight, it would be very natural to read Psalm 68 on the 50th day. If you just read it, like you'll see, there's some people raptured and there's some people left for judgment. My goodness, it's like a perfect psalm for all that. But you know what? Let me just highlight two things in Psalm 68. All right. And I think this will be more mind-blowing as well. Think of Psalm 68 as the Feast of Weeks. And here we go. I'll zoom in a bit here. And I just highlight a couple things along the way here. Where are we? Here we go. So, as wax melts before fire, so let the wicked perish at the presence of God. Okay, so separation. But let the righteous be glad. Let them rejoice before God. Okay, so a separation of the wheat and the chaff. What do we have here? Verse 6. He brings out those who are bound in prosperity, but the rebellious dwells in a dry land. So separating the wheat from the chaff. What we have over here is, in verse 8, he reminds us of Sinai in this psalm. Isn't that amazing? Mount Sinai is the Feast of Weeks. This chapter is reminding us about the Feast of Weeks when God spoke on Mount Sinai. Mind blown. But he doesn't do it once, he does it twice. Just in case you missed it. Verse 17, the Lord is among them as in Sinai in the holy place. He reminds us twice to look back to Sinai, Exodus 19, when Feast of Weeks happened. And then we've got the separation of rebellion. And then we've got salvation, Yeshua, in this chapter, the God of our salvation. Oh yeah. And to God the Lord belong escapes from death. So we got the wheat here, then we got the chaff following it. But God will wound the head of his enemies, the hairy scalp of the ones who still goes on in trespass. So there's good and bad verses all over Psalm 68. Read it yourself. My goodness, it sounds like a rapture to me. And then Psalm 50, I've mentioned this before. I'll just touch it real quick. So Psalm 50, because Feast of Weeks is the 50th day. Psalm 50 is so prophetic. It's so clear that it's the rapture. It's talking to three groups. Psalm 50 is, the first paragraph's talking about rapture. Second paragraph's talking about Israel. And the third paragraph's talking about the wicked. Is he telling us that we're going to rapture on the 50th day, on the Feast of Weeks? I don't know. But let me zoom in to Psalm 50 verse 5. That's the highlight. Gather my saints together to me. Those who have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. That means those who have believed in the cross. Second paragraph. Hear, O my people, I will speak, O Israel. I am against you. Uh-oh. Jacob's trouble. And then the third paragraph. But the wicked. Uh-oh. God says, what right have you to declare my statutes or take my covenant? Uh-oh. Okay. So we have the first addresses to the mighty ones of God. We are children of God. So Psalm 50 is a separation from the wheat and the chaff. Okay, it's Jacob's trouble. It's Jacob's trouble. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Israel's going to be in travail. The wicked, well, if you're not in Christ, uh-oh. If you got Jesus in your heart, you're a child of God. Now, quick little review. There's not too many chapters in the Bible that have chapter 50. So since there's a prophetic message here, I thought, okay, let's just look over here. Remember I said Israel's trouble? Well, in Genesis 49, the last verse, Jacob dies, and then they mourn for Jacob in chapter 50. But Jacob will be mourning during the tribulation. Joseph dies in chapter 50 at the very end of it. But Joseph says that he's kind of like a type of Christ because he says, don't worry about it. It was all meant to happen. But anyway, Jacob dies, Joseph dies. Joseph is a type of Christ. Isaiah 50 verse 6 specifically is a prophecy of Christ essentially dying for us. Jeremiah 50 is a theme of judgment on Babylon. So we got Jacob's trouble. We got the people rising because Christ died, right? So we got Jacob right there, Jacob's trouble. And then we got Christ. Joseph was a type of Christ. We got that, Christ. And then we got Babylon. Right there, Jeremiah 50, Babylon falling, representing the wicked. So the theme here of the chapter 50s is we got Jacob's trouble, represented in Genesis 50. We got the raptured Gentile, represented in Psalm 50. Because in Isaiah 50, we got a representation of Jesus dying for us. And then we got the wicked represented in Babylon, Jeremiah chapter 50. Whoa, my goodness. My goodness. So I'm just going to quickly review everything else that I've said and just say it kind of quick, okay? So we've got over here the Torah giving us the codes of 50, 50, 50, and 49. Well, that's the Lord's Day, the Lord's Day, the Lord's Day. Count 49. If you multiply, that means that equals 49 million. Hello. If you add this all up, 50 plus 50 plus 8 plus 50 plus 49, that gets you the value of the Hebrew word light. Whoa, light. What do you do with a menorah? You make light. Whoa. Let's go. What we got over here? We got a covenant. Every color represents one of the 7 feasts of the Lord, but it also represents a Sabbath. 1 Sabbath, 2 Sabbath, 3 Sabbath, 4 Sabbath, 5 Sabbath, 6 Sabbath, 7 Sabbath, 50. The Lord's Day, because Christ died on Passover, so too we will be able to be with him and meet him in the air. Hello, Jesus died on the Feast of Rashith. This feast is the Feast of Bakar, which is when you bring your first fruits. Oh yeah, they're connected. One is not one without the other. The two are one. Let's go over here. What over here? Quick review on this one. So James 1:18 tells us that we are the first fruits. Leviticus 23 verse 17 says the bread specifically is the first fruits. So the only time in the one day a year when you offer the first fruits with leaven, the leaven of Christ, and the 2 lambs will be with the Lamb wherever he goes. The only time you can offer your first fruits is on Feast of Weeks, when you take the house out of your Bethlehem, value of 490 in Hebrew. Oh, yeah, 49. Do you see the connection of 490, 49? Oh, yeah. And you'll know them by their fruits. Fruits, root word is harpazo. Harpazo, root word is Aramaio, which means chosen to take for oneself. Root word of that is ario. I'll see you in the ario if you got the right leaven. If you got the right leaven, you'll be leaving. You got bread in G740. The root word of that is ario. Another little review here is we got a Holy Convocation. And it's a Mikra Kodesh. And the next Mikra Kodesh is a Feast of Weeks. Remember, Revelation 4 and 5, in my opinion, is actually a Mikra Kodesh, a Holy Convocation, when the priest would stand up and open the scroll and read to everybody. And that's the next Holy Convocation, which we will be doing all the time. It's one of the top 3 times when you would always gather before the Lord. Okay, and then of course that's just a review over here. That was the thing that was the game changer. Understanding that the Feast of First Fruits for a Feast of Weeks, Bakar, is when to burst out of the womb to give the birthright, make firstborn, bring forth her child. And so what we have is a theme of now the plot thickens. Was John actually up in the throne room on Feast of Weeks? Whoa. If John was in the throne room on Feast of Weeks on a Sunday, on the Lord's Day, I mean, what else are you going to do? So that's one of the biggest points here. And I'll leave you with that. If you're not tight with Christ, I recommend you do so, because even if this day passes, he certainly is coming very, very, very soon. I could talk longer and longer on a lot of these themes, but I'll leave it there. I pray that you got the leaven of Christ in your heart, and the leavens and teachings and the honey and the words of God in your heart. And if you're a child of God, that's your identity. That's it. That's all. It's not what you did in the past or what's happened in your life, but it's your identity is found in Christ. You're hidden in Christ. And soon, Yeshua, symbolically son of noon, he's coming to get his bride. And are you ready? Do you have the Holy Spirit in your heart? Are you one with Christ? Have you read and declared Romans 10, 9 through 13? If you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, you will be saved. I pray you have, and I pray you do if you haven't. Time's running short. Hope to see you in the clouds very soon. And go, Jesus, go.